This is a condensed lecture on leadership for OLPD 1461. When we last talked about group functions, we talked about Benny and Sheets' task and social and roles that we play in a group, some of which are task, which equal productivity, some of which are social roles, which equals cohesiveness. We also carried that through to group functions. Task equals the group is focused on getting the work done, again, productivity, and social, the group is focusing on building relationships, which is cohesiveness, or stick together. Fisher says we need both task and social to be synergetic. We carry that through when we look at leadership. Sargent and Miller, two researchers, say that leadership can be defined in two different types. Democratic leadership, which equals social or relationship building, and autocratic, which equals task and productivity. There are two different types of leadership, task and social, which are also described by Sargent and Miller, again, as democratic and autocratic. An example of this might be for democratic, and again, it's not political necessarily, the term, but I'll use a political example. Bernie Sanders might be described more as a democratic leader, again, focused on relationship building. Early on in his campaign, he met with college campuses across the nation and held town meetings where he would get the advice and information and feedback from college students. Basically, his line was, "What do you want your country to be? Tell me what you want me to do for you." That's democratic. The more information, the more feedback he gets, the more people he's involving. Autocratic might be a little bit more along the lines of Hillary Clinton. She talks a great deal about her 30 years of experience and what she has done in those years, and the way that she approaches leadership is autocratically thinking, I've done these things for 30 years, people must like what I'm doing because I keep getting elected, and therefore I will continue to do what I want to do and people will elect me. Again, that's autocratic and democratic, and that's Sargent and Miller. There are also three types of leaders that I'd like you to be familiar with. The first type of leader is an elected leader, and that would be someone literally who is elected to the position. That would be the President of the United States. It could be a judge. It could be a state senator. Anyone who literally is elected to the position is an elected leader. There's also an appointed leader, and that's someone who is hired for a job through a committee or one person. As a professor at the University of Minnesota, I am an appointed leader. I was hired to do the task. No one voted me in. I was hired to do the task. And then also, if in a small group situation, if there is not an elected leader or an appointed leader, one leader will emerge. And the emergence of leaders happens when you're in your social situations, your social groups, or your fraternities, or sororities, or casts in plays, that type of thing, where there's not someone designated in your peer group to be the leader. And there's three ways that emergence of a leader happens. The first step is the elimination of all non-leaders. So those of you in a group who have no interest in being the leader, in offering any suggestions or solutions, elimination of those non-leaders, those non-leaders will fade away. It can happen if they are, when we talked about the best individual, if in fact, when we talked about lack of credibility in a best individual, elimination of non-leaders could be if someone is offensive or non-participating or uninformed or just really not interested in leading the group. They will step aside. That's step one, elimination of non-leaders. The second step of the emergence of a leader is 2 or 3 people will vie for credibility or will make a suggestion. So for example, if your friend group, if there's 5 of you who on a Friday night want to go out and eat, and friend number 1 says we want to go to Chipotle, and friend number 2 says, well, we want to go to Pizza Hut, that's vying for leadership. 2 people or 3 people will make a suggestion that the group needs to respond to. So that's strengthening of credibility of potential leaders. And then the third step of emergence of a leader is the group decides who they want to lead them. A leader emerges. So for example, with person number one, friend number one wanted to go to Chipotle, friend number two wanted to go to Pizza Hut. The group decides if they're going to go to Chipotle or Pizza Hut, and therefore the group decides the leader. So for example, if the group decides to go to Chipotle, then friend number one emerges as the leader. When we look at traits for a good leader, we can think of things like compassionate, loyal, good communicator, trustworthy, honest, knowledgeable, all those type of traits we could list on the board. There's a researcher, his name is Byrd, B-Y-R-D, and he says that in any given situation, we as humankind look for 79 traits of a good leader. He researched this. He says 79 traits, and no one has them. No one except Clark Kent, Superman, has all 79 traits. So what Byrd says is we as small groups, we tend not to be focused on people's personality traits to be leaders or leadership traits. What we tend to do is look at leaders in certain situations and see how they did. So, for example, when we did the Lost at Sea exercise, and the best individual that lost at sea was when we had to rank the 15 items, and we had people in each group emerge as the best individual. What Byrd is saying, when we have another situation, if the group that was meeting for in your group was meeting for Lost at Sea, if you then were in another situation where you had to have a task as a group, what we would do is look for the best individual. If the best individual was successful in Lost at Sea, we're going to assume that they're going to be successful in the next situation that our group is meeting. So we looked for situational leadership as opposed to traits. We're not concerned with the 79 traits that somebody has. We are more concerned with how were they successful in the last situation, and assuming that they were successful, they will be successful for us again. So that's situational leadership versus trait leadership with Byrd. On the PowerPoint, the small group communication PowerPoint that's on our website, I have 3 discussion questions that I'd like you to take a look at. Discussion number 1 is, in the case of a stalemate, meaning nothing's happening, a leader can help the group problem solve by making the decision for the group. That's discussion question number 1. Discussion question number 2 is, leadership training will never produce good leaders if leadership personality traits are missing. And then discussion question number 3, the job of leadership should be distributed among members of the group rather than being carried out by one person. Take a look at those discussion questions and take a look at my answers, please. As far as the Sergeant Miller leadership, and when I was talking about autocratic and democratic leadership, I will, next time we meet, have the opportunity, if you would like, to take a quick survey of your leadership styles. We won't deal with it in class, but it might be just interesting for you to find out if you tend to be a little bit more autocratic as of dealing with tasks and the productivity of your task, or do you tend to be a little bit more democratic and focused on social and relationship building? Again, as Benny and Sheets say, that we need to have an equal balance. We also need to have an equal balance or a combination of autocratic and democratic styles. So that's the lecture on leadership, and I look forward to seeing you in class, and we'll take a look at the Sergeant and Miller leadership exercise when I see you next. Thank you.